Good morning. I am really excited to have my friend Ryan Naus here. He's in from California. We're in the offices of Aqueus here in Madison Heights, Michigan. Been traveling a little bit in the last couple of days. We were together out in Washington a couple of days ago, and Ryan and I have talked for the last few years, and he really is a steward of our land and a deep thinker in terms of trying to figure out ways to make our world a better place through regenerative agriculture and education.
My company, We Grow With, is all about educating and equipping people, because I believe that we're ill because we're ill-equipped. But as soon as we have the right tools, it's amazing what we can accomplish. And at that point, it's called thriving. Right? And so what you've been able to accomplish, and what so many in the regenerative movement have been able to accomplish, is the retooling of nature's toolbox, which allows for stewards to be able to use the correct tools to right the course, put it on track.
I agree, and that's sort of where I wanted to go. I think, this is my personal philosophy, but, I think for the most part, everyone tries to do good things, and, that's sort of at the center of my heart, doing good things and the foundation of Aqueus. But quite a while ago, some of the large agrochemical companies came out with lots of products, and, they treated symptoms, and we found that overuse or maybe abuse in some cases, that we learned that it's hurting human health and certainly hurting our soil health. And I think there's a lot of us around the United States and all over that are really going back to where we were before some of these chemistries came out, and looking at what we can do to improve soil. So with that being said, I guess my first question is, do you think there's starting to be a change where people are realizing that through biologicals and fungal use and like we've mined from the ocean for our NPK, or excuse me, from our lands for the NPKs, and now we have biologicals from the sea, and what we do is from the air. Do you think we're starting to make a difference today?
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful to work with so many amazing people that it's not just a qualitative awareness of this where we're doing a good job, but the research, the studies, the information that other people can look at and dive into proves on layer upon layer that this is how we restore healthy systems, both to the land and to the air and to those that live on top of it or in it, like under the water. Like, this is how we actually have healthy systems again.
Well, I'm big on it, and I think in the conferences we have, and that we realize that we are what we eat, and if it all starts in the soil, and that when we're putting things on the soil that we consume, and we go by sort of things that were developed to be faster and feed more people, we realize some of those aren't working so well for human health and stuff. What do you think, when we start at the soil level, what do you think are the key ingredients to getting the, beyond the 10%? We have the 10% adopters who are out there and seeing how these things that we're talking about improve their farms and improve their food. What do we need to do next to really get people interested in understanding that soil has to do with climate change, has to do with human health, and so on and so forth?
I think first, which is what I tried to also share, is that there's a distinction between dirt and soil.
Yes.
And we can have a mineral profile, raw constituent, mineral structure, but if there's no living component to it, that's dirt. It's putting that life
and we've
back.
turned soil into dirt over
Exactly.
the last 80 years.
And to the point that even people who have zero dirt in their life because they've grown beautiful soil still call it dirt.
Yeah, right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so it's an understanding that this actually has a living component to it. Now, hydrogen fuels that living component. Like, we use the word ubiquitous, but really that means it's integral and everywhere. This is part of the system that allows it to connect. We've often heard 6 points of separation. Well, in this system, when it's all connected, it's really one point of disconnect.
Yeah.
And so if we can actually put that piece back into it to make it connected, then my creatures and the fungal communities and the rest of the soil microbiome have a easier time participating in that micro level to what we're doing on a macro level.
Yeah, I think people fail to realize that, we hear about carbon as being, so important. Like when we were born, we were 90% water, which makes us about 60% hydrogen, and as we get older, it falls away. And the same is true with soil, and that hydrogen's an important part. And as you know, that what we've been able to do at Aqueus is that we've developed and got 45 patents around hydrogen stabilized. So what that means is, if you look at the molecule up there, that with water you have 2 hydrogen, and every farmers prefer rainwater to irrigated water. We bring at least 10 times more hydrogen into the play, and that's sort of why, from a biology point of view, when there's so many different biologicals that people are using, and a fungal point of view, that, like you told me last night, it's number one, right?
It's number one,
yeah.
For a reason. So the periodic table is also another one of those trauma points for people in education,
right? I know.
Right?
Was for me when I started.
But from a biological perspective, periodically we all have to sit and eat at that table.
Right.
And so you don't have to consume only cobalt, but if you don't have that piece of the puzzle, you're missing out on one of the constituent elements. And it starts with hydrogen, right? And then as it progresses in both complexity as well as in how it's able to be utilized, because you take hydrogen and oxygen, you shove them together, it's water, right? And so this is now, how do we utilize water? It's essential for life. And so it's in the use of this this banquet that is before all of us.
It's a good word, I like it.
Yeah, that we're able to actually be satiated. We're able to be satisfied, and then to be able to get back to the purpose that we're intended for.
Well, you never even thought about this till right now, but today the supplement market in human health has grown rapidly, and when you sort of do the analogy to plants, that people really concentrate on the macronutrients, and that's why we mine and do all the NPKs and pour more on and more on and more on to, maybe moron is maybe the word, that in plant health, that somewhere in my belief is that between 4.2 and 5.8 on the pH scale, you start to get those micronutrients, and that you can't really get. They're in the soil, but unless you get your soil pH and EH, which is redox, in the right zone, the plant doesn't take them up, and you can see 10, 15, 20% extra growth if you get those in, same as humans, right?
Yeah, and this is where the biology has biochemistry that's able to achieve this. What you have been able to achieve and through your guys' process is kind of not a shortcut to that process, but it allows for the lack of the biological energy. Like, you don't have to exert so much to be able to get those benefits, because it's already primed and ready for use. And so, but if we don't have the creatures there, like, we still have some energy available, and it does make benefits even in a traditional chemically driven agricultural system. But if we're working with biology, you're actually sending out your labor force refreshed. Mm-hmm. You're providing resources to them so that they can get the job done. And that's where the mineral nutrition comes in. That's where the water availability comes in. And that's what leads to success, both for plant growth, but also for people and communities.
Our common friends and customers is Elevate Ag. And one of the things that, in a discussion at a conference, a month ago or so, we were just having a chat, and one of the things that we said for biological and fungal growth, if you're putting those into soil that's hard and compacted, that they work, but it takes them a while to dig their way through it, and such. And with products like our Growthful Max and our Growthful Pre-Emerge, the goal is if you can get the soil better, all those things work better. And we talked last night, late into the night, that it really is that community of all these products coming together, because we have these little constituencies out there, and we're trying to change the world with what we're doing and bringing them together, so they all work together like God intended them. I think is the goal, right?
That's my goal.
Yeah.
Like, it is the defining line between being in a survival mode where you're just trying not to die versus you're excited to live.
Right.
Right. And so that vigor that we want to see both in our plants and then the animals that consume those plants, and we who consume both the animals and the plants,
Right.
It is in that thriving, wanting to live and enjoying life part. This last year, some of the people that I've been working with, we've been part of national nutrient density studies, but we were also part of an autism study that we showed improvement on every metric. Yeah. That's what happens when they eat good, healthy foods. That's what happens when it's now about thriving versus just not dying.
Right.
in that specific situation, but also in the livestock and farming operations.
Yeah, when you talk about soil versus dirt, and one thing's come to mind at Aqueus, we've done some studies the last couple of years, and if we, through everything we've talked about so far, if we make more nutrients available, one of the problems we see in human health is the nutrient density of the food we're eating and the foods we eat. But we found that if we can do good things to the soil, that we can provide better food to people that make them healthier, right?
Yeah.
Isn't there a huge tie-in between all those things?
100%. Human health, oftentimes, it's just health, right? It's being healthy.
Yeah.
But then we say, well, who? And then we go, well, human health or animal health or land health or plant health. No, but it's just health.
Yeah.
Right? And so those other factors are just the perspective looking in on what health really represents. And so for some people, it's only focused on human health. But you really can't focus on human health if you're eating things that aren't healthy.
And they're not available, and it's getting them to the market where people can get there, and let's just spend a few more minutes, and if we talk about farmers across the country, I think the challenge, they've been doing things the same ways for a long time, and that was NPKs and IP using integrated pest management, and it seems to me, and it's my opinion, that more was always better. And where did all that more get us to today?
A broken system.
Yeah.
Sick people, dying communities, unhealthy. That's the end result of being disconnected from a naturally sustainable, diverse, healthy system
that God gave us initially, and we tried to tweak it a little bit, and and I'm not saying all these things are bad, but what I'm saying is that, like anything, whether it's alcohol or you name it, that too much is not good.
Yeah,
for
we've
you.
not had moderation.
Yeah, moderation,
when it comes to
and I think
using chemicals in agriculture.
and more just kept going, and we make no kill claims with our products. Okay, what we do, we talk about our Growthful product, but we also have Typhol, which is used in plants to help keep them clean, and we'll be introducing a product called Freshful. And what's interesting about Freshful, we've started our university studies and had very positive results so far. We're going to do another year before we get too big in talking about it. But when we talk about why things go bad, it's usually due to oxidation, right? Isn't like plants and humans, and pests only come after the bad part or the bad plants because their stomachs can take in, and that's through oxidation. Is that how you see it?
Which is, we get back into redox and yeah. So yes. This is where it's connected, but it comes from not being able to be stable, right? Even on like an individual level, if you're always back and forth and everything's so extreme, you have to be grounded, you have to be stable, right? And so when we talk about that with food products, it's shelf stability. How long can it sit on a table or a shelf without it shifting into a decomp or a rot situation. And so if we maintain that health and what provides health, then of course there's going to be greater advantages to the storability and the accessibility of the health and nutrition that's there. Even when we talk about quote unquote oxidation or rusting, you eat an apple and then you leave it out in the air and it turns brown. Well, that's actually that oxidation of those sugars and things that are there in it, versus it staying fresh and able to be consumed.
Well, today, on products that we're working more at the post-harvest, once you take a fruit or vegetable off, it does its own antioxidant properties go away.
Right.
And with hydrogen and oxygen, I said we make no kill claims, but what we do claim is that by putting hydrogen and oxygen onto the plant, we help its ability to stay fresher, where today all these pesticides and chlorines are posted on to kill anything that's on it, which keeps it alive longer, but we also have the impact of these chemistries being on it. And that's sort of where our goal is with the Fresh Full product coming up, is to help the plant help itself. And we have former EPA Director Stephen L. Johnson on our board, and he's been around for a long time studying this company, and when I sort of got into the details about that, he found it pretty amazing. And the same thing happens when you're in your foliar sprays and stuff. If you can keep us healthier, plants healthier, we got a better life, right?
I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Pretty sure. Well,
I think what happens, and it's a perspective shift, but I think what happens is we get into this mindset that says, kill them with kindness. Yeah, but you're still killing them.
yeah.
Like, I don't care if you gave them diabetes, I still don't want them to die,
Right, right.
And so it's in that process that out of convenience, oftentimes there's a consequence that we really don't understand the cost of it.
Yeah.
And so I want to get rid of this weed, as an example, say in agriculture or just for an individual homeowner. But in the process of getting rid of that weed, which is actually serving a purpose, we've now given ourselves leukemia. Right? So yay, I don't have the dandelions in the lawn, but I'm not going to get to enjoy the lawn very much longer either.
Trade-offs.
And so what we're attempting to do, and regenerative agriculture as a whole is pursuing this at scale, is to be able to not kill them with kindness, but to nurture them so that it can come back and nurture us.
Right.
And it's in that process that we're not having to shortcut our advantage so that we can just save a few minutes.
Right.
We're actually gaining advantage so that we can add longevity both to ourselves, to our next generations, and our communities.
Right. Well, we said we weren't going to make this too long, and everyone's got places to go. We're here on a Saturday morning, but I want to turn it around and ask you if you have any questions you'd like to ask me. And if you do, we'll spend a few more minutes, and if you don't, then we'll move along.
I'd love to hear how you see what you've done fits into, say, the fungal communities as an example, right? Because though it's something that's standalone, how do you see what you've done as part of that support network behind what these other biological kingdoms are doing?
Yeah, good question. I came in as sort of a rookie. I owned a greenhouse, and I saw what these growthful products did in terms of plant health and plant vigor and all of that. But I've learned a lot from people like yourself and our friends in the community, and really learned a lot about human health. And one of the big things that I believe, as I've hung around a lot of smarter people than me, is that by providing stabilized hydrogen, that when you take our product and put it on your tongue, it feels like a 9-volt battery, and it's energy. And what we do is we create carbonic acid with our soil products, growthful, pre-emerge, and pre-emerge and pre-emerge max. And when it goes into the soil, it creates carbonic acids. And the three things, like plants are made of 92.4% carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen. Mm-hmm. And so we provide, with our stabilized hydrogen and oxygen, we provide 2 of the 3, but when it goes in the soil, and reacts with carbon, we started this cycle of carbonic acid, which in life, plants exude their own carbonic acids to go out there and break up soils.
Mm-hmm.
We're doing it without it having to use its photosynthesis energy. So,
Right.
so as we apply that to, the fungal community or biological community, that we just help them be better. We help it move, and you showed us on the microscope recently, the activity, and if we can increase that activity and let nature and biology and fungus do their thing, that stimulates more growth and all the things we've talked about earlier.
It removes the resistance, and a resistor is also an electrical. It removes that inhibition from making that momentum go in the correct direction to growth and to stability and the vibrancy that the system wants.
We all
to
only have so
embrace.
much energy, which is true of plants, and like we sort of got that kickstart in the energy. So that's fundamentally what we do. We say every tank every time, because whether you're using a fungicide, a pesticide, a soil amendment, that getting it in the pH range and EH range, where you're really getting the activity you hope, is important. And I don't think farmers quite understand that range, and that's something we got to be better at communicating.
That's true.
Right?
And that's just on a purely chemistry side, and
Yeah.
and for individuals who are still using all those sides, right? The herbicides, the fungicides, the nematicides, all the sides, when they receive benefits. But if they've decided which side they're on and are trying to promote life, then the living part also receives those benefits by having an easier path, more access to the energy. We also talk about how, these should be aerobic soil systems.
Yeah.
Well, once that exchange takes place of energy, oxygen is a byproduct. Like, this is where water and oxygen are actually still nurturing that ecosystem as it's tapping into the energy that's available to it.
All right. Well, you have any more questions for me?
Not at this time, but I look forward to other conversations and a lot more there's a lot of progress. It's underway.
So, over the last week, I'll end with this. You had a chance to meet some of the people I work with,
Mm-hmm.
and what do you think about them and our mission of doing good things?
I'm impressed with the team, the knowledge and the foundation that everybody I've interacted with is like high caliber, right? Even when talking about the smallest details and minutia, there is an understanding which connects it to even the biggest of pictures, which is wonderful. And I think that it's through teams and communities and different companies, even, and organizations working together, that we can leverage that character of its people to the bigger picture that we're all hoping to achieve, which is happy and healthy people and a world that reflects that.
Well, hey, it's been a pleasure hanging out with you last night and over the last couple of days, and we really appreciate you coming to out Madison Heights, Michigan, and seeing our beautiful plant.
Yeah.
We wanted to show that it wasn't a garage. It's not a garage, is it?
If it is, it's one of the nicest ones I've ever seen. So yeah, no, super grateful to be able to see your facilities and understand the process that is required to be able to produce this, and also the ability to produce this at a scale that everyone can access this and start utilizing these resources. And my fungal communities and foundational fungi and the different companies that I work with that utilize this biology, they're receiving the benefits because it makes those products more efficient and effective as well.
Right. Great to see you. We'll be
to see you
hanging
too.
out, talking, working together. I'm looking forward to that.
Me too.
Thank you.